After seeing a new influencer program pop up, I went down a deep dive about Amazon publishing and I was actually shocked at what I found. I know that sounds like such a grab, but I genuinely had not heard of any of this as someone who recognizes most publishing houses, and if not, I can kind of suss out like which imprint belongs with who and kind of put it all together in my mind. I truly did not know the depth that exists within Amazon publishing, legal battles, essay allegations. It's a lot. Let's unpack it. Okay, in 2009, well, technically 2007, the Kindle came out. And then in 2009, Bezos didn't want to just sell books. As we know, Amazon made a major start on books, especially underselling them so then they could grab people over to their side and then end up selling them different kinds of products, selling books at a loss, which is why they hurt bookstores in summary. And they knew that they had that marketing power. So why not publish books as well, just to have control of the entire industry? They really started making moves in 2011 when they hired Larry Kirschbaum. This guy is a former CEO of Time Warner Book Group. So he was an industry heavyweight, is what you could consider. And basically, Amazon was trying to tell the world, we are truly entering the publishing space. We took someone from the traditional world and he's going to revolutionize everything. From then on, they had multiple imprints, which is kind of just like subsets of within the publishing world where usually they focus on, for example, like Montlake is a lot of like romance, what you could call like women's fiction, and Lake Union Publishing, which was what got me into this mess in the first place. And actually, there's one I've never heard of, Amazon Crossing, and that's for translated works, and it has actually become the largest translation publisher in the United States. By 2019, they had 16 different imprints. What's fascinating to me is that at the beginning, they threw around money everywhere and really got like some decent book deals for really top names that actually underperformed ridiculously. They paid Timothy Ferriss $1 million for The 4-Hour Chef. So he was the guy that was like the 4-Hour Work Week. They also paid Penny Marshall $800,000 for her memoir, and it only sold 17,000 copies. And James Franco's Actors Anonymous sold fewer than 5,000 copies. So despite all the money, all the big names, they were not doing well and also not making bestseller lists. Quick content warning, going to talk about the essay allegations with Larry Kirschbaum, will not be going into details. In August 2013, Ellen McCoy, a former colleague and one-time romantic partner of Larry Kirschbaum, filed a lawsuit alleging essay. Of course, these allegations brought unwanted attention to Amazon Publishing. Just 5 months later, in January 2014, Kirschbaum left Amazon Publishing. The official story was that he was returning to being an agent, going back to his literary original work, allegedly speculating that timing is a bit suspicious. Amazon replaced him with Daphne Durham, who also left a year later. But the thing is, even before the essay allegations, Kirschbaum was already considered controversial. He was considered a turncoat. That's what his former peers called him, a traitor to traditional publishing. He was allegedly known as Amazon's hitman. That was Amazon Publishing's first major scandal, but was not the last. Okay, specifically with Lake Union Publishing, this is what I was finding. You cannot find them in bookstores. And this is something that I'm not sure aspiring authors even know about when they're signing on. I'm sure a lot of them think they have this marketing powerhouse. We've all seen the documentaries about how they have fiddled with changing the buttons of the add to cart now, and they're doing all these little mini experiments. There's this amazing documentary about that is really eye-opening that has a previous engineer or coding person from Amazon who talks about how they can just finagle and run all the stats on how to get people to buy things. And so I could assume that an author would be like, well, they're going to finagle and get people to buy my book. But I think a major hindrance is that you will not find any of those books in Barnes & Noble. In 2012, Barnes & Noble announced that they would not carry Amazon publishing titles. Independent bookstores quickly followed suit. The reason is simple. Amazon is their direct competitor. From their perspective, every Lake Union book they sell is essentially advertising for their biggest enemy. Amazon knew that this was a problem, so they tried to get sneaky. In 2012, they created a new imprint called New Harvest in partnership with, I can't say this, Houghton Mifflin Harcourt. You can tell when you just are a big reader and you learn things by reading and not necessarily speaking. I recognize that name. They're a traditional publisher. The idea was pretty sneaky, brilliant, maybe, I don't know. Hide the Amazon connection, get books into Barnes & Noble, except Barnes & Noble discovered this connection and still refused to stock them. This means there's no bookstore signings, there's no pre-order incentives that a publisher could facilitate. Going to see your book physically at the bookstore. Very rarely, some places that local authors have connections with, like maybe a Walmart or Sam's Club even, surprisingly, they could get them on the shelves. But for like online ordering via Barnes & Noble or wide distribution, it's not happening. Print editions do exist though. So obviously Lake Union, they use Amazon's print on demand services through their Brilliance Publishing subsidiary. So that book is technically available through wholesalers like Ingram or Baker and Taylor, but bookstores actively choose to not order them. Another thing that happens is that there is no traditional media coverage like NPR, major book review outlets. They're going to ignore Amazon publishing titles. There's no pre-launch buzz from like Publishers Weekly or Kirkus. This is widely because they have a digital first mentality. Almost all of Amazon published books are going to be available on Kindle Unlimited, which already has that exclusivity clause within it. And you're not going to find those ebooks on Apple Books, Kobo, Nook, Google Play. It's Amazon or nothing, which also leads me to believe that they would not be available via your library on something like Libby. So that's it. When you're signing on, you're all in on Amazon, which some authors are fine with. Maybe they're not even aware of it, but is an issue with some other ones, obviously. Okay, the 2014 Amazon Hachette War that I had no idea about. Let me tell you. So this is allegedly one of the ugliest battles in modern publishing history. So 2014, Amazon and Hachette. So they're one of the big five publishers. Some of their imprints, like the one I'm most familiar with is the romance one, Forever, Love Forever. They were in contract negotiation. So they had a previous agreement that expired in March and they needed to decide on new terms. The core dispute was ebook pricing. Amazon wanted to sell ebooks for $9.99. Hachette wanted the ability to set higher prices. This wasn't just about money, it was about control. Who gets to decide what the book costs? And this was right after that Apple price fixing scandal where the DOJ had sued Apple and several other publishers for colluding to raise ebook prices. That case was settled in 2012 and publishers were still kind of reeling from it. Allegedly. So negotiations between Amazon and Hachette were not going well, and Amazon just decided to go nuclear. So Amazon removed pre-order buttons from Hachette titles. So this included major releases from high profile names. A lot of times what determines gets on like the New York Times bestseller list is going to be from pre-orders. I'm sure you've heard of this from authors before. It's such a frustrating and pain point that I would imagine not an author, just that you have to pre-sell your book before anyone has even read it, or maybe a few limited select ARC readers have read it, that the publishers decide who's going to ARC read. And so there's just so much out of your control on to try to get onto a list. And so to completely remove that ability from Amazon, because unfortunately people still do buy books from Amazon from traditional published work. And Amazon also delayed shipping on Hachette books, allegedly. So orders that normally arrived in 2 days suddenly took weeks. They reduced or eliminated discounts. And then they promoted competing titles on Hachette authors' product pages. So you'd be looking at a Hachette book and Amazon would say, similar to, and it would be from a different publisher, allegedly. And they also made, allegedly, Hachette books harder to find in search results. So Amazon was essentially holding Hachette authors hostage to force the publisher to accept their terms, and the authors had no say in this whatsoever. They were caught just in the middle of this corporate battle, which a lot of authors also just have to work another job. It's very rare for an author to be authors full time. So that must have been so frustrating, which also led to the author community exploding. So on one side, you had Team Hachette. So Douglas Preston, a best-selling thriller author, led a group called Authors United. Over 900 authors signed on. So heavy hitters like Stephen King, James Patterson, Donna Tartt, Robert Caro, they wrote an open letter condemning Amazon's selective retaliation against Hachette authors. They even got the DOJ, Department of Justice, involved, asking them to investigate. The argument was simple. Amazon was using its monopoly power to bully publishers and hurt authors in the process. On the other side, you had Team Amazon, mostly indie and self-published authors. Hugh Howey, author of the Wool series and a self-publishing success story, led a counter petition that got over 7,000 signatures. And then their argument was that Amazon liberated authors from the gatekeepers of Trad Pub before Amazon. If the big five rejected you, you were basically done. And so now you had another avenue to publish your books. And in their view, Amazon was kind of the good guy or like the savior, and traditional publishers were the ones that mistreat authors with royalty rates and long publication times, that kind of thing. And then it got even more bonkers, in my opinion, when Amazon pulled another nuclear move, in my opinion. of offering Hachette authors 100% of ebook revenues during the dispute. So not 70, not 50, 100%. Amazon and Hachette would each take $0 and all the money would go to authors. So Hachette called this offer suicidal and refused. The Authors Guild said Amazon was trying to manipulate authors, pitting them against their own publishers. It was a divide and conquer tactic because accepting the deal would have meant authors were essentially working for free from Hachette's perspective, and it would have destroyed the publisher's entire business model. This dragged on for months. Finally, November 2014, just in time for the holiday shopping season, Amazon and Hachette reached a multi-year agreement. The terms, Hachette got to set its own ebook pricing using the traditional agency model, but Amazon got better terms when Hachette chose to offer lower prices. So neither side really won. It was basically a draw, but the damage was done. And there was another thing I found in my research, and during this dispute, an internal memo from Bezos was released, which he allegedly said, and he allegedly told his team to approach small publishers the way a cheetah would pursue a sickly gazelle. So if that's how Amazon views publishers, then what are the authors? Okay, so that was a lot. Scandals, essay allegations, boycotts, corporate warfare. But the interesting thing to me is that I did find some positivities, particularly with Amazon's imprint of Lake Union Publishing. One positive is that 18 months to 2 years is a lot of what traditional publishing looks like to get your book out there, but Lake Union can get it out there in a matter of months. You get author input on a lot of major decisions like cover approval, audiobook narrator selection. This is allegedly. And allegedly the royalty system is transparent. So just to be clear, I'm not speaking from experience. This is all just like from my research. So you can get monthly statements that are easy to understand. You see real-time sales data through Amazon's Author Central dashboard. And so then it's no more like of waiting 6 months to see how did pre-orders fare, what lists are we on, that kind of thing. And the marketing, it is true that there's like this Kindle First program where Prime members can choose a free book before it officially launches. I am proud to say I have never had Amazon Prime. Just please don't bean soup me because I get, if you live in a certain area, whatever. I live in a major city. I don't need to buy from Amazon whatsoever. I don't need Prime. So I do whatever I can to avoid that personally. And I highly recommend it. Just you'll get used to not having it, I swear, because I don't even know. I guess it's like the benefit. I don't even know what I'm missing. But yeah. So apparently that happens. They also get targeted email campaigns, promotions on Fire tablets, and Amazon won't confirm this, but some authors tend to believe that their books also get a boost within the algorithm as well. But the thing is, there's still those really, in my opinion, significant downsides. So it's invitation only. This actually really surprised me, is that you can't like query them. So their scouts find books with sales potential. So typically self-published authors who have already proven that they can sell. So then they'll get an offer. So if you don't already have connections, that's how you'll get invited in. And then I already talked about the bookstore situation. So no signings. And then again, you're not getting that prestige of getting an NPR and interview invite. You're locked into this kind of, well, again, Kindle ecosystem, but then also like this kind of culture of not really looking down on Amazon publishing. So now my question was, is Lake Union Publishing successful? So they like to say that 40 of their authors reached over 1 million readers by 2019. But the thing is, are these numbers inflated by Kindle Unlimited page reads? Because KU pays authors based on page reads, not books sold, and so then Amazon counts those as readers. And also, we are only hearing from successful Lake Union authors. I mean, understandably, I feel like that could be said for any kind of publishing house. So it's hard to know what these numbers truly mean, because also, again, they're not making bestseller lists. So that's another metric that we just don't have. So now we need to talk about Amazon's monopoly question. I feel like a certain character in Project Hail Mary. So as of 2014, and these numbers have only grown, Amazon controlled 67% of the ebook market. 67%. And so that's not like what they say in the business market leadership. That's like verging on total control. They also controlled 64% of online print book sales and an estimated 50% of all book sales in the US. But the crazy thing is, books represent only 7% of Amazon's total revenue. So essentially, books to Amazon could be like a rounding error. And again, like I mentioned before, it's like the term is like loss leader to get you to buy electronics, groceries, to pull you in. So they sell books at a loss in order to attract you to their site. And being the retailer and the publisher, again, like I mentioned, they know what sells, what keywords work, that kind of thing. They can promote their imprints over competitors. One thing that has been interesting has been the FTC has looked into it. Lena Khan wrote about Amazon's antitrust paradox. So the antitrust laws currently fail to address Amazon's market dominance because Amazon does keep prices low for consumers, which traditional antitrust law sees as a good thing, even if it harms competition. So it's like centering the consumer that you do get low prices. So it's working, like the market dominance is working, when in reality, it's just they're only increasing their percentage take over the market, aka a monopoly, allegedly. Here we are in 2026, and the Amazon boycott conversation is more complicated than ever. So again, I will always buy books from indie bookstores, bookshop.org. I will even buy from Barnes & Noble because they are, in my opinion, that middle ground of a brick and mortar store, and all the rest, like Borders, have gone out of business. And I don't necessarily consider it in my mind, it's not the same as an indie bookstore, obviously, but it is something like a Barnes & Noble exclusive. It's just, in my opinion, what I'm okay with. And also, full transparency, I do subscribe to Kindle Unlimited. I have personal indie author friends, and just right now, as it stands for me, that is an ethical gray area that I don't like that I am in. And yet I am. What was interesting for me to read is about certain authors who have taken anti-Amazon stance to the nth degree. Lydia Davis, a MacArthur Genius Grant winner, refused to sell her 2023 novel Our Strangers on Amazon at all. Dave Eggers boycotted Amazon for his 2021 release, but these authors are obviously, they have a lot behind them and they can't afford to do this. Of course, politically, there have been more boycotts of Amazon in general, not necessarily related to books, but just because of the problematic, there are no ethical billionaires and other Bezos criticism. I did find this statistic that indie authors, especially LGBTQIA plus authors, BIPOC authors, disabled authors, get about 85% of their income from Amazon. So if readers boycott Amazon to support diverse voices, that's actually hurting the group of authors that they're trying to help. And because of this alleged possible monopoly, alternative platforms don't have Amazon's discoverability. So even if these authors did pivot, there's still quite a bit of lag, even with Kobo Plus, that kind of thing. One equivalency currently is that an author who makes $3,000 a month in Amazon might make $200 on Kobo. And unfortunately, we live in a capitalistic hellspace, and not everyone can afford to do that. So understandably, a lot of indie authors are caught in an impossible situation of can't afford to leave, but also don't like staying because they feel complicit in a ecosystem that is just not great overall. So specifically with Lake Union Publishing, I did try to see if there were any particular scandals within just that imprint or controversies, anything like that. And I didn't find any. They actually seem to be Amazon's one of their most successful imprints. The controversy is just, again, more with Amazon's publishing at large. So really depressing fact is that we have lost 63% of indie bookstores since 1995. I do want to mention one of my favorite women, queer-owned, queer-supported, community-driven bookstores in Denver, Petals and Pages, is closing. I was devastated to read that, and just add them to that statistic. It's just such a bummer. Before I wrap this up, I did want to share why I fell down this rabbit hole in the first place, and it became because I tried to buy a book. I was reading Mara Williams' book and absolutely loving it. She was going to be at Love Lit Con in San Diego. Very kind author. Was super fun to meet her. And I wanted a physical copy before I went to have her sign. So I just looked. I went to the indie bookstore site of a few that I usually frequent. Couldn't find it. I thought, okay, maybe I hadn't even heard of the title before I had saw the attending authors list. So I was like, okay, maybe not as popular, I guess. Couldn't find it on bookshop.org. I also couldn't find it on Barnes & Noble. So then I was like, what is going on? I knew about Montlake being Amazon, but I did not know about Lake Union Publishing. I'm like, what is up with this publisher? The only place it was available was Amazon. And then I had another situation pop up. So there's a recent release called Sight Unseen, and it seems to be a romantasy. It got blurbs from high-profile romantasy, traditionally published authors. So it seems like TradPub authors. I use TradPub. I guess Amazon could be still considered TradPub, but the big five authors are still allowed to blurb and individually promo Amazon published books. So I saw that, mentioned that, and I saw that this book was on Kindle Unlimited, but that's all I hear about it. And it's only going to get hype online. It's not going to be on any list. I was actually even surprised just to see those TradPub authors going out of their way to have that coverage. But romantasy is such a big thing right now, and it seems kind of like possibly DOA. And that makes me really sad because I feel like I'm missing out on a lot of really good books, a lot of chances to meet authors. And I do want to be clear that I'm not judging any Lake Union author directly. Again, capitalistic hell space. I'm not an author. I don't know what it's like to try to write something and get it published for years and years and years. And this could be your one chance. Or maybe it's not about the money. It's not about Amazon to you. I totally get it. I'm basically saying I don't get it, and therefore I will not be passing judgment on an individual person just trying to get their art out there in the world. But I maintain I definitely have judgment for Amazon, even though, again, another reason I can't judge authors is because I do have a Kindle Unlimited subscription and I use it. One thing I try to do, especially with indie authors, is to buy directly from them when possible. What's really fun about a lot of indie author pre-order sales is my friend Megan Bowen, she does like a wax seal when she packages up your book for you, and there's a lot of like pre-order incentives and cute bookmarks and that kind of thing. And I know TradPub has started doing some of these things, but it's definitely not as widespread as an indie author putting in love and care, personalizing something. But one thing I don't see myself doing is when I want that physical copy, I really do hope that Lake Union authors could sell direct. I have a feeling that possibly they can't. I don't know the details about that, but I can go as far. I'm not going to boycott their books. I still will read them on Kindle Unlimited. Another thing I won't do though is I will not be participating in any kind of Amazon publishing influencer programs whatsoever. Just not my thing. So sending the best vibes to any Amazon published authors and also indie authors. I understand that inflation is only going up, and allegedly behind the scenes, like page read like payouts are only getting less. But yeah, let me know who this reaches. If you're a reader, if you knew about Amazon publishing past scandals, went deeper than I ever thought. Would you sign with Montlake or Lake Union or any kind of Amazon publishing? Is it about getting the art out? Is it about making a stand? Who benefits actually from a boycott? Let me know. Okay, bye.